It's time for the Dynamics podcast. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. It's time we got back on track. It's almost February already, so it's most definitely time to do another podcast. Today, we're talking to Marius Agur Pedersen. We're going to talk to him about customer engagement. We're joined by Hatlevik. He's also a business solution MVP. Today, it's all Norwegian. Enjoy.
This is the Dynamics Podcast, episode 24, recorded January 25th, 2018. Customers engaged with the Marius Agur Pedersen and Hatlevik.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dynamics Podcast. And joining me today is my lovely colleague, for now, it's Tommy Skaue. Hi, Tommy.
Hi, Fredrik, my brother from another mother.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. It's been a while since we've been podcasting. I've been extremely busy trying to tie up some loose ends, and so last episode was probably the coolest thing we ever did, and that was the tip off with Murray Fife and Chad Carnes. Yep. The much anticipated episode. I'm not going to give away. If you want to go check that out, who won and all about that, it's in the description down below if you're on YouTube. If not, you can probably find the link somewhere. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But as I said, it's been New Year. It's a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We're almost in February, and we haven't done a podcast in over a month. But I thought we'll take another whack at it and try and get out an episode before February is here, because I got some news. I'm going to tell about that a bit later. But for the moment, I'm going to take on our guest, which is Marius and the Wizard of EG. It's Hatlevik and Marius. And now, guys, it's kind of cool because people might not know this, but in tiny little Norway, we're about 5 million, a bit over 5 million people right now, and we got 4 business solution MVPs. And
5.
We got 5. Who are we missing out on?
Ahmad from Infoworker is MVP and business solutions based on his work on Flow and Power Apps.
Okay, so there's one in every million then. That's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty tight. So
0.0001% of Norway's populations are VS MVPs.
That was a fast percentage calculation. Yeah. So, but Marius, you're the new one here. Kurt's been on before. Maybe you can do an introduction, who you are, what you do, and how'd you get there.
Yeah. So I'm Marius, also known as the CRM Viking. Which should give you a hint about what I do. I've been working with Dynamics CRM since 4.0. Just worked my way through everything there is to know about it, which is a bit less than AX, thankfully. And I'm the owner of the Dynamics 365 meetup group in Oslo. So I'm guessing I got the award based on that, but I'm not sure. Everywhere I go in the MVP world, I kind of feel like the newbie looking up to the gods of days yonder.
Yeah, because there are quite a few CRM MVPs out there.
I think there's around 70 worldwide.
Yeah. It's about twice as many as we are on AX, isn't there? It's like...
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, at least.
Oh, yeah, well... There's been an increase the recent years, but yeah, I remember I was at one of my first summits, and I was surprised to see how many CRM MVPs there were.
Yeah. So do you run your own company, or what are you doing this day? I know you did run your own company, but you started somewhere called Puzzle Part.
Yeah, so I tried this my own company thing and found out that work isn't everything in life. So after a weekend at a hackathon in Oslo, I found out that the guys in Puzzle Park were just my kind of people. So we had a strategic meeting between Stefan Nordby, the company manager, and that turned out to be a job interview. And here I am running the CRM department.
Yeah, you never know in this business. You never know when a job interview occurred, right? So talking to somebody and suddenly you're working together.
Yeah, so I'm basing all my talks with the companies that this is a potential job interview.
Very good.
So just start with, hello, my name is Marius, and I'm very happy with my my company.
Well, that's good.
So it's kind of that you are interviewing who you want to work at. It's not they interviewing you. It's kind of you who decides where you want to go.
That's
yes,
the benefit
I'm just
of the
waiting
MVP.
for your resumes.
Yeah. And Kurt, maybe you could do a recap of who you are and what do you do and how'd you get there?
Oh yes, I'm living in Bergen, same city as you, Fredrik. The rainy and the clean city, which is kind of nice to live in. I've been working with the Dynamics product since 1997, so I have a few years on track on there, and I'm mainly focusing on various management and retail and everything that is related to enterprise resource planning. But yeah, and also blog a lot and like to see the podcast that we create here.
Oh yes, and about that, because I can drop the news now. I've got 1 week left as an MVP, because on the 1st of February I'm going to start working for Microsoft. Which is has been my goal the entire life. I feel that I love the company. It's like when somebody likes football, somebody likes basketball, somebody likes technology like me. And if you have you're into football, you kind of like you have your favorite team. And Microsoft's kind of my favorite team. And so it's kind of like a football, very, very interested footballer now going to work for their favorite team. So that's me next week.
You have to give Tommy some napkins. I see some tears coming down his in here.
Yeah, it's gonna miss me. Yeah,
I was oh, okay, good riddance. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Yeah, you said
Tommy called me and said, "Well, Kurt, since we're going to the MVP summit, and Fredrik is not here, could we sleep in the same room?" And, of course.
He needs somebody
my
to snuggle.
only requirements were it has to be an MVP and it has to come from Bergen. So, what can I do?
Second choice.
Oh yeah, there's some more MVPs from Bergen. There's a couple of more.
Well, AX MVP then. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, so there's 2 Western Norway guys, and from your dialect, I figure you're not from Oslo, Marius, are you?
no. I'm from almost all of Norway except the west coast.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yes, I've lived every like from the quite far up north, and then in the middle, Trondheim and Kristiansand and several parts of the eastern side. But after Trondheim, they told me that the weather in Bergen is so bad, I didn't want to check it out.
It's like Seattle, right?
I got a trick question for you. So, extremely far north. How far is that?
Well, for people in Oslo, it's further north than Trondheim.
Right, exactly.
But for you, it's so I've lived in Sortland and Nadellas and been a lot to. Well, haven't lived there, but spent a lot of time in Tromsø.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You're well traveled. So let's talk about the year. What happened last year? Are you anybody want to kind of start off? Because we had there was a lot of stuff happening last year. We're kind of getting off on that. We got the Dynamics 365 Unison back last year, or that's 2 years ago now. So back in 2016, and then we kind of just waited.
November
what was
16th.
happening. Yeah, and then it kind of grew into what the envision was from Microsoft pretty intensely during 2017. There's a lot of updates. We on AX we got the separation of the client and the AOS, what's it, the application and the platform, and suddenly we got a lot of updates, and there was a lot of updates coming out. 7.1, 7.2, and I guess on the CRM side, you got version 9 on, which was big change, and
the spring release, which turned out to be the July release, which came out in October.
Yeah.
Oh.
And of course, I have some customers on that, and we were trying to upgrade, and it's kind of time slotting when you want to upgrade the CRM. We got a time slot in April.
Yeah, I was first out, so I get it in February.
Okay.
Well, that's nice. And anything you kind of want to take away from last year? Maybe you want to start, Kurt. You have some thoughts on 2017, and
I feel that finally we got the name together, Dynamics 365. But I feel now that in 2017 it kind of matured. And we suddenly see now that Microsoft is drawing up processes that kind of involves both product lines. So you very often start a process in the CRM elements, and then you continue on the operational elements in Dynamics 365 operations. So I think that's kind of exciting to see the maturity of those processes, and we see that when we go out to customers now, we don't go out as a CRM team or as a operations team. We go out as a Dynamics 365 team, and kind of then have customers focusing on the sales pieces, and then of course build up integrations between the two systems. And I'm hoping that in 2018 these things kind of mature, and that we also get true integrations between these systems, which is more or less out of the box. So I'm looking forward for that.
Yeah, because the CDS is also was kind of a new product, and it grew into something, and we know that it's going to evolve, and they've said that it's going to be something that is going to be growing into a more tightly integrated platform for integration. So we're looking forward to what's going to happen on that, and I finally think that when that comes to fruition, we're going to see what Dynamics 365 kind of really is. And until then, we'll just live in unified operations and customer engagement, right? So
I
thought it matured, and I thought people got ready and to kind of got ready to be start to upgrade from earlier versions, right? The 2009 upgrade path was set, and then the 2012 upgrade path got in late that year, at least in the summer, and then we saw customers kind of, at least from our side, we actually got sales coming in and projects being planned, because there was a lot of skepticism in the beginning for what this was, and we wasn't sure, and you have to do some training and these types of things. And I thought in November, December, it was really hot on the sales side. There was a lot of people kind of wanting to jump the gun and be the first one out. So did you do any implementations during that year in 2017? Did you go live with any customers, Kurt?
We had 30 customers going live. So it has been a tremendous amount of focus on that, and but we see a very good mix of existing customers and new customers. So it's very clear. But what I've heard, at least, and what I also see, is that Norway is one of the countries where they kind of adapted to this technology fastest. Because
I heard we were second to Netherlands. It was Netherlands and then Norway from.
So it kind of seems, at least in our market and the customers we meet, they have confidence in Microsoft. But I see in other countries they're a bit more skeptical, especially when it comes to placing their information in a cloud. They don't know where it is. So we have these kind of myths that is still going on, at least on abroad. If you go down to Denmark and go further to Germany and so on, you still have a lot of skepticism which exists.
Yeah, and Germany is kind of one of the things that Microsoft is making sure that those myths are kind of torn down, because they put up their own data center, which is run by Deutsche Telekom, and they can host it there. And I think it was on 7.2 they actually got the data center up. Do they have the German data center up and running now? I think they published it.
Okay, maybe I haven't checked.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, but one thing, the Dynamics 365 for what do you call your area? Dynamics 365 for sales or for customer engagement, and how do you brand yourself?
Marius, that I would guess that was for you.
Yeah. So I start by saying customer engagement, and then, like everyone else, I follow up with formerly known as CRM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So for me, then 2017 was the year where nobody adopted Dynamics 365 as a product name.
Okay.
Yeah, we still get customer leads where they say CRM, and people from companies who shouldn't say CRM still does. Not mentioning names because they're going to hang me. But yeah, I try to say, but it's kind of like an icebreaker. So I start by explaining how the name change is important, because it's a signal that Microsoft is changing the way they are delivering that application. It's no longer a customer relationship management solution. It's an entire customer engagement solution. So project service isn't customer relationship management. That's project service, obviously, but it's a part of your customer engagement. So I use it as an icebreaker and just explain how Microsoft is adopting and how Salesforce is still a square piece of paper.
Yeah, the community you have, is that large? Is it because there is a Microsoft site called ideas.com, ideasdynamics.com, and in there you kind of have suggestions and so on. And then I realized that those who's working in the CRM part, they have close to 10,000 ideas, while we on the operations side we have close to 1,000. So this means how big is actually the community that you have?
So I think it's quite large, but not that large in Norway. At least the active community isn't that large. But there are several MVPs who earned their title based on responding on the Dynamics forums and so on. So it's there's a lot of knowledge out there. And we have solutions like the XRM toolbox and stuff like that, which makes developer invest time in open source tooling, which again makes them promote the product and so on. So there are several ecosystems that kind of just promote new professionals to join in.
But isn't that the overall thing when you compare, let's say, CRM and AX, or customer engagement and operations, is that CRM is way more mature than AX on that end, because it's been SaaS for so long, and it's been online, it's been available as a subscription solution, fully hosted by Microsoft, and it has a more mature community, I guess, than AX. I mean, for me, it seems like if the community started building up back in 2012, when you got that, they launched the community forum, and I mean it has built up a lot the last maybe 4 or 5 years on the AX side, but it seems like it's been bigger and it's been longer and bigger with CRM. So I think you are way ahead of us, if you're going to say you and us. Terms.
Well, so that's a mistake, and shame on you.
Okay.
Yeah. The community is quite robust, but the customer engagement solution just keeps changing all the time, and like half of the requirements Microsoft has done has been pushed into the CRM and customer engagement environment. So operations is kind of more robust and it changes more gradually, while in 2 years, Dynamic CRM turned from like a sales, customer service, and marketing, where they bought up some other marketing solution, which turned out that it was too big for a Dynamic solution. Then they partnered with Adobe, and then they took the whole ticketing system and tore that apart, threw it into the main ecosystem, and then they added portals because they bought ADX Studios, which I'm very glad that they did, and then they bought Project Service Automation, or I can't remember if they bought that or if that came along with field services. But anyway, it's just a lot of products thrown in there, and there's so many changes. You can, if you want to be a customer engagement MVP, you can just start today and pick anything. There's just so much to learn and to do, so you're not competing with 70 other MVPs for a title. It's just like, just take anything. There's more than enough for everyone.
Yeah. Another question. For instance, in our world, when we create a sales order, we create a purchase order, we create a customer, we kind of need to select the different fields from lookups and so on, because it's very strict saying that you cannot fill in anything in a field unless it's kind of defined. But on the customer engagement app, it kind of means that it is more loose. It doesn't have. You can of course set up strict rules on different things, but it kind of means that they are accepting that you may be typing in a zip code that doesn't exist, or you can type in information that doesn't exist. Well, how do you see about that? Is it the way those kind of users is working? It's kind of collecting a lot of data and.
Yeah. So. It came from it used to be a CRM system, even though it's like customer engagement now. And the thing about a CRM system is that it's to empower your salespeople. So it's a tool that is supposed to make it easier for them. And if a salesperson doesn't have the correct zip code, then preventing him from filling in that data and continuing in the sales process suddenly becomes a reporting tool instead of sales efficiency tool. So I think that's just like an important basis that, as we all know, salespeople have the attention span of half a goldfish, so they need to be able to just insert their knowledge as fast as possible and keep moving.
Yeah.
While in AX, like a classic ERP application, I really don't want to send out goods and the invoices to addresses that don't exist and so on.
Yeah, but how do you see the process of that? Since Microsoft now is promoting, we need to thinking about prospect to cash, these kind of longer kinds of processes, where on the one end you have a tool which is meant for quick sales and making sure that you have relationship management, and you don't have too much restrictions on the data, and then you suddenly are pumping data over to a system where you're very strict. You need to exactly know the ID number. You need to be specific on the quantity and the unit and so on.
Yeah. So the sales system you should really be specific on the units and how much people are buying, and that's why we have actual and estimated as two different fields. But when it comes to addresses and so on, it's I kind of feel like they're complementing each other, and the basis of the CDS model, that it's the same entity. So a contact in previously known as CRM is the same as a contact in operations. But there are some fields in the operation schema that aren't available in the customer engagement schema. So you don't contaminate the data across, but you share the data that is important, like the name and the phone number, the email address. Because in a sales efficiency system like a CRM system or customer engagement system, an email address and a phone number is much more important than the zip code or the invoice number.
Yeah, but can you also see that we will have some quite interesting situations later on when you have when we're integrating these two systems more and more, and that of course it could mean that those salespeople who felt that this is very easy for me to use, and then suddenly there will be a lot of rules saying that you need to apply these rules other than the operation side will not being able to catch up or use this information. Do you see that then suddenly the salesperson said, oh, and now it becomes too difficult again?
Yeah, so that's an issue time and time again. So you see people implementing new customer engagement system right now, and they have like this sales process, which is 7 or 8 different stages, and each stage they have required fields, and each stage you have to update the probability and so on. And when they go live with this system, the salespeople just go, oh, I'm just reporting what I'm doing. Okay, so I'll just fill in my Excel spreadsheets and my OneNote notes, and at the end of the week, I'll just fill in whatever I did this week in the CRM system. So I think that's the same kind of challenge when you try to integrate with operations. You have to find that, what you call that in English, like the golden middle, the golden ticket kind of. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be different from one implementation to the other. So people are different and company cultures are different, and it's going to be important for us as consultants to guide customers.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I notice is that you're kind of moving now to every time we start talking about this, we move to sales, because that is a lot. There's so many components coming in now. So the scenario that we're talking about now won't basically apply if we come to field service, because then again, a zip code would be really, really crucial. If you don't have the zip code, you don't know where your service people are going. And then again, if we're going to project service automation, it's again another field. Now, what's kind of weird now is that because we have had project service automation, it's called project accounting and management in operations, but that kind of has handled everything that is now being moved out to the XRM platform. It's going to be really interesting to see how this is going to be interoperable between the different systems. It's one of the next kind of tasks that they're handling. They've handled prospect to cash now, and the next one now is project service automation. And I'm really looking forward to see how that is going to work, because I think also what you're saying is about efficiency. I think it's more, XRM probably is a more efficient platform. It's more mature when it comes to, let's say, the development platform underneath. With Tommy says that it's based on C# as opposed to C++, which is on the AX side. And
X++, okay.
Yeah, but isn't that based on isn't that based on C++? X++ is so it's the basic.
X++ is now a .NET language. Yeah, it's a managed language.
Yeah, well, so it's basically a more mature application. I'm really looking forward to see what they're going to do and how much they're going to move now, because obviously they're taking bits and parts of operations and moving it into CRM. And what is exciting now is that you see, you have a lot of an active community, and you've been working on sales. That's mainly what you're focused on. But suddenly your platform now supports project service automation, customer engagement. It's supporting field services, which has basically been something that has been handled by the ERP people. And I think that we on the operations, finance and operations side, now have to look into what's being moved out and try and go into that. And that's where I think we will kind of butt heads in the future, where we see CRM guys coming in with project service automation, and then operations coming in with service automation. And so it's going to be an interesting kind of scenario where we deliver the same product, but we have two different backgrounds and two different maybe views upon how this is going to be implemented.
As I think for the future, it's going to be decoupled a lot more. So formerly known as CRM is going to be sales and partially customer service, because the customer service module from CRM was really just sales focused. So it's not like a classic ITIL application. It's more like, oh, you have an incident. Can we make a sale out of that incident? In that case, you have this convert to opportunity button.
Yeah.
So like the former CRM, very sales-based, and it's going to be more decoupled in the future, and then we're talking about sales. And it's the same way with field service. It's its own module, but for everyone used with the system, you used to work with the system, you can see that it's actually part of the old CRM. But field service was a CRM solution from Field One. And Microsoft bought Field One and then spent a lot of time stripping away parts to make it fit into the Dynamics ecosystem. And I believe as they decouple it even more, you won't think of field service as being part of formerly known as CRM or customer engagement. You're going to think more of it as sales, field services, project service automation, connected field services, and so on. And I really hope they take the good parts from both sides and put it into field service. So that's kind of a huge responsibility Microsoft have, because if they just take something from one side, you're basically neglecting all of the professionals who are working with operations or with customer engagement. So you need to see that these people need to come together to deliver solutions that are both to the value of partners and customers out there.
Yeah, I think we have to kind of change our mindset that we are AX and we are CRM. We have to get in line with the marketing strategy, which is now, this is, if you're going to work with projects in the, let's say you're going to work with businesses that need project service automation, you should also know the XRM tools that are there, as well as what is in finance and operations. So it has to be a crossover. And what you're saying is that instead of, I heard, there was a podcast, I think it was Breda Rekstedt and Implement This. They talked about that. Look at it as more of a platform. You can do anything as long as you program in the business logic. So if you took all the business logic that is in AX now and just coded it into at the XRM platform, you would basically have the same solution right there. They could have gone with that strategy, but it looks like they're kind of maturing into it and easing us as partners as well into this. But I think we have to be awake and be open for changing the applications, and that's why we need both parts. And as I said, we're going to see convergence. We're going to see probably a lot of ERP partners buy up smaller CRM partners because those are more fractured. And that's how it's going to be.
And we also have to watch out for new and upcoming CDS people, because they're going to take our jobs. Like when Talent came out, like people are talking about, this is stuff they got from NAV and like this is inspired by this and this, and Talent is the first application built from the ground up based on CDS. So if we don't watch out for those guys coming with ladders, they're going to catch up to us. So it's really important to stomp on them and keep them down, so we're still the best.
We have to change our mindset that we're delivering a product, and more that we are business advisors and business process consultants, because that is basically, and we know our toolbox, the different toolboxes we have, and we have to get to know them. And there are a lot of tools at the moment, so everybody has to be, there's no wizard that can do everything now in applications, except Kurt, of course.
I have a question. How long time does it take to learn the customer engagement app? If I would like, I'm starting, let's say, from scratch, and I would like to be a quite okay consultant, how much time do you think I would require before I actually can deliver value to the customers?
So never, because customer engagement is too big now.
Okay.
So I don't think even the most seasoned veterans in the MVP world know all of the modules, because there's so much. But like if you're a developer, just learning the basic guidelines for doing REST services and some minor front-end development, then you can start delivering on Dynamics customer engagement projects really fast. But they're moving away from that whole back-end, front-end kind of development and focusing more on flow, Power Apps, and business value. So that was the hardest part for me, actually, because I really love coding. Like I could sit for 2 weeks and type, just typing C# code, pulling my hair out, drinking coffee, and I just loved my life. But I had to get used to that we're delivering business value, and the Dynamics licenses aren't cheap. So you have to see the value in the platform and focus on how can we solve actual business problems and not try to design a system based on the platform that we like.
Yeah. That was where we were on 4.0 and earlier versions, right? Because we were like, we can go in and we can be consultants, and then we started tinkering and we added fields and we added business processes, we added tables and we added everything and coding, and that was, we had these hybrids of consultants and developers that were out there and being in meetings with customers and going into the live solution and hacking away and making. Tom is shaking his head because he's a developer. But that's the reality. That's how it was back in 4.0.
The cowboy times. The
cowboy times, yeah. And I think Microsoft is trying to, they've been working a lot to kind of reduce that. And I finally heard, again, I'm going to pull up the Implement This podcast with Fredrik Sætre and you know the other guy.
Joe Lindstrom.
No, Implement This is
Wasn't
with
Joe?
Fredrik Sætre and... Oh, I'm sorry. So I'll put a link in the description and you'll find it. So the first time I actually heard them talking about standards, because I feel that the CRM space is also create new fields. If you want something, I'll make it for you. No problem. We'll do it. Is that where you kind of at? I know that you're capable of it, but is that something that everybody else in the business is doing?
I think so. A lot of people are still delivering the old-fashioned way. So, like Microsoft has warned us that they might enforce the rules of the license types in the future. But I think there are a lot of companies still delivering based on the team member license. So just creating tons of custom entities and just saying, no, we're not replicating any functionality. No, not at all. It's all brand new. Okay. And I think they're headed for a shock in the future where the team member license will be actually limited. So yeah, there are a lot of companies still just, we're creating a field here, a new entity there, and we're not going to use opportunity because that costs too much. We're making our own entity and we're going to call it potential for sale. Okay. Yeah. It's not an opportunity at all.
Okay. Yeah, no, well, I heard that Brito had heard somebody at Microsoft talking about them asking them to stick to the standard, because that is kind of the mantra. If somebody goes out and sells operations today, you're going to hear a lot of talking about sticking to standards. Standard. Don't add another field. We'll get around it by using another field for another function, or you have to change your processes, right? And I'm hoping that is where the CRM is also kind of moving towards being more standardized, so that the application is more fulfilling of what is expected of a company on the CRM space.
I think quite the opposite. I think it's going to be more like you're building apps for Dynamics, for the whole home.dynamics.com thing. So when you're publishing apps, it's with your fields and your entities. but it's going to be important that you decouple them from the standard.
Yeah.
So feel free to add the entities, feel free to add fields, but just don't contaminate the default schema.
Do you see upgrade issues when you go from earlier versions now to version 9? Do you see some issues there?
Well, we don't know. The upgrade, first available upgrade is February 20th, I think.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Have you had that issue when you go from 2011 or the earlier versions and then up to newer versions now? Do you see you have to remodel things or things are getting overwritten? I'm not sure how the technology behind this works, but you have had any issues with code not working on new platforms?
Yeah, for sure. Because the most recent update was like the TLS 1.2 thing, and like everything stopped working for everyone suddenly because Dynamics 365 suddenly didn't support the defaults for .NET 4.5. So people had a lot of applications out there, like portals and integration pages who couldn't connect to Dynamics anymore. So that just broke a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But in people's defense, like Flow and Azure Service Bus can't replace anything, anything. It can't replace everything yet. So, yeah, we have encountered things that are breaking, but the community has also found clever ways to work around it. Like, for example, if you're going to do customizations on the account form, then you just open the account form and save as. So you make a copy of the default one, and then you just work on the copy. So when you get an upgrade and the form changes, it doesn't hurt the customizations you made, but you've duplicated the forms and the schemas and so on.
Is it as far as I know, you can deploy version 9 instances of the sales right now. But you cannot
new instances.
But you cannot upgrade them. Do you have customers saying that, okay, I'm just exporting out my data and I'm closing the production environment I have and I'm pushing the data in?
Yeah, so we don't have any customers doing that, but for sure there are some customers doing that. And the thing is that the update coming on December 20th is not 9.0, it's 9.01. So all of the issues they're reporting, all of the, like the Dynamics app for Outlook, which is an Outlook web app, it says preview all over it. And that's not going to be the case on February 20th.
Okay.
So yeah, you could use version 9 now, like we are using version 9 internally, because I'm hard to deal with when I try to get my will. but I wouldn't advise customers to go to version 9 and migrate all of that data, because there are so many fixes coming in 9.01.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know if they're going to fix the sorting issue? Because we've been asked to deploy a Norwegian database for version 9 and not the English one, because the English one will mess up the sorting. I'm just curious.
No, I haven't.
You haven't heard about that?
Anything about that? No.
Okay, no.
Yeah, but how far have you come to utilizing Microsoft Flow and Power Apps and Power BI and those kind of additions that we have in the family now?
Yeah, so the biggest business value I've delivered the last few months is actually no code, all Microsoft Flow. So there is this one solution which I'm probably too proud of, where you create an account in sales, which triggers a flow, and the flow checks whether there is an existing channel in Teams. If it isn't, then it creates a new channel. Then it creates a dummy file in a SharePoint document library, just so you don't have to wait for the timer job to run. And then it goes back into Dynamics and it creates a document location, and then connects that document location to the account. So whenever you create an account, you get a new channel in Teams, and the document location is available both in Dynamics and Teams.
Okay.
And that's just like a few hours of configuration which everyone can do.
How far is it in the ability to run Power BI embedded?
Well, you're asking the wrong guy, but
Okay.
yeah. So you can embed reports from Power BI, and if you have Dynamics licenses, then you have the right to use Power BI. So it's kind of it's an area which is hard. It's hard to deliver on right now because people are used to having advanced reports in CRM. So they're doing advanced fetch reports or doing reporting services reports. And now they have Power BI and they're thinking like self-service BI inside CRM. But like I said, like CRM or a customer engagement system is a sales efficiency tool. What you want in your sales efficiency tool is what can I work with now? How am I doing based on my KPIs, and what are my employees working with right now? So you don't want like those huge reports showing you which areas of the world you're selling the most and what's the average age of my clients and so on. That's a BI solution. So do that in Power BI by all means, but don't bring that into customer engagement.
Yeah, because I see a lot of these Dynamics 365 apps. They kind of build into each other. You kind of have the ability to embed Power Apps, Power BI operations, and CRM elements to each other. And I'm sometimes wondering if we will end up in a recursive action here, where an app includes itself in an app, and that kind of shuts down the entire Azure.
Yeah, why not? So, like. Well, if you look at Satya and Nadellas keynotes and Scott Guthrie whenever he talks about new stuff, if all the customers implemented the things Microsoft are talking about and demonstrating, then everyone would have the same system and everyone would have machine learning which learns from each other. So basically, all customers would sell the same thing to the same end customers, and everything would just go in the loop. You wouldn't need people anymore because the Microsoft platform is just dealing with itself all the time.
Yeah.
But as a business solution
go back to yo-yos and marbles.
As the solution is now, we have, you mentioned Satya, and did you get to read the book, guys? Have you read the book? Yeah.
No, I haven't.
I cheated and I got it on audio. So it's it is on Audible, yeah.
Yeah.
And it talks about, he's been very adamant, and he talks about these systems of engagement and systems of record. And if you look at what Gartner is talking about, so you have the system of record, which is in the bottom, which basically would be finance and operations. So those are types of systems that you change every 10, 15 years or so. And then you have the system of differentiation, which they call it, which is the tier above, which would basically be the CRM apps. So it would be sales and these types of things, which are business process specific to different types of organizations and these types of things. And then on top of that, you have what Gartner calls the system of innovation. And that is what we are now seeing with Power Apps and Power BI, and because you can call Power BI actually an app. I use it to solve so many different business critical situations where we have a business requirement that we need some changes in the system to do this, and in many cases we just end up with a Power BI report which is better for the solutions that they're asking for. So I think it's really interesting to see that how Microsoft now applies that same logic. And I know, Kurt, that Bo J. Christensen, which is fairly big in this, has talked about this same architecture type for years now. And it's really cool to see him also being on board and talking about how exciting this is. And I think that also kind of influences how good the Norwegian market is now, because we see so much excitement about this new platform, every new technology. We have tinkers in every business. Everybody's in making Excel spreadsheets, and now they got Power BI and Power Apps and Flow that they can play around with to make new business processes. And I think we're going to see an immensely big value coming up in 2018.
He's also addressing another concern, and that is the innovation cycle that Microsoft currently is on, because they're coming with so much new that you kind of end up with a lot of partners and customers who the only thing they do is try to learn, and we suddenly see that the customers is not, and the partners not able to cope up with the innovation that is currently happening. And each time you have implemented something, it is already outdated because there is new releases and new software coming up. And he addresses that in what could happen then is actually a loss in productivity, because suddenly people get a lot of attention on the software and not the actual value drivers that the software should represent.
Yeah. It's exciting that we have to make sure that we don't forget that we actually have to do business as well. There's so much fun things to play around with.
Yeah, well, Kurt, you alluded to it sort of early on in the show. You'd have so many implementations in 2017, and I get a feeling that a lot of the customers today, they have a higher expectation of the solution we provide as partners today. They expect them to talk to each other. They expect integration. They expect them to be available on any device, etc. So even though I'd be happy to implement AX 2012 R3, which is something that I feel very familiar with, I just have to learn operations anyway. So, but yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. Another thing from the Hit Refresh book is the focus on accessibility, and how he explains that his son with handicaps and how the perspective he gets from that, and how important it is for him to build accessibility into all the applications.
Yep.
Making sure that everyone gets applicable for the job market.
Yeah, that was really,
and I think that's
really a good. There was a really insightful chapter right there into how he thinks and how he wants to be a part of this, and I think it's just amazing to see how he's changed the company now to one Microsoft, which is it's pretty awesome. You should read the book, Tommy, and.
I'm
going to put a link in the description to the book, and if you don't subscribe to Audible yet, you can get it for free. So you can just download that book, and that's all you have to read, right? So you get it in your ear. If you're listening to podcasts, you should listen to audiobooks anyway. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I think it's around 3 hours to Iceland, and then it's 6 more hours to Seattle. So you should get pretty far through that book by the time you arrive in Redmond.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Fredrik, we need to ask you with a big question. And how does it feel not to be an MVP anymore?
I am an MVP. Ask me next Thursday. I'll tell you then.
Yeah.
Not according to the MVP site.
Did they kick me out?
Did
they do that already?
Removed you from Pride and MVP.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah.
Well, there is a picture of you, but there's a red cross over your face.
Oh, thanks. I'll get that. No, it's. I haven't
seen this man.
Yeah. So that's the reason why we haven't done a podcast, because I've been like super busy just trying to kind of get all the loose threads that I have now in projects and with customers, and getting people up to speed, and try to hand over as much information to my colleagues as possible. So that's kind of been my last weeks, and coming up the next couple of months, I'm going to be traveling a lot. I'm going to be traveling a lot working for Microsoft anyway. And I'm not sure if you're going to see this background, but I'm probably going to try to do something. Maybe you can hook me up with a studio in Oslo, and we'll come down there and do something. Marius, I'm hoping that we can do podcasts still. I'm going to try at least, and Tommy, I promise you we'll do it. But maybe this microphone won't be there. I bought a special microphone so I can use, and I'm hoping that also other people kind of pick up the pace and add their content. So anybody who wants to make their own podcast, it's so easy. It's just like I did a short demo for a couple of MEPs on how to do it, but nobody has come forward and wanted to start using podcasts. So anybody who wants to do podcasts, be on the YouTube channel. If you want to do a podcast, just contact me and I'll show you how it's done and get you started. And it's just a matter of actually booking a time in your calendar and saying, I'm going to do a podcast. It's just sit down and talk to people, because it's nice to hear somebody talk about the product.
We didn't plan for this, Fredrik. I mean, we started this back in September, October 2016, right?
Yeah.
So this podcast is a bit over a year old by now. And I get a feel that it has been welcomed. There is an audience for this. And so comment on the channel, comment on Twitter, and give Fredrik all the incentive he needs to keep it going. Otherwise, we'll just take the podcast and
we have to do it. We have to do
provide us some life without him.
You have to.
Everyone is going on.
Yeah, we can always do refresh. So if you've seen all the podcasts, just start on the beginning again and then continue on. So we will do that until you start creating new podcasts, Fredrik.
Oh, that's good. What we're closing in on we have like 680 or something subscribers on YouTube, and there's more subscribers on the podcast actually. So we're just hoping that some people will come and add their content into this channel. So I'm open for anybody to like just start a show on going through ideas.com, or the ideasdynamics.com. Just look through and just talk about them. It's that easy. Just find some content. It's not that hard.
It ties into what Kurt said earlier, that there is so much information that we as partners and as customers are striving to learn and get into. And so there's a hunger for content, even though they've been adding a lot of content on the documentation sites, and there's so much out there. It's good to have all these various medias and channels to consume all of this information. This podcast edition.
Yeah, and also to get a personal touch, because yes, we have tons and tons and tons of information, but there is nobody who's saying, I like this or I don't like this, and it's kind of the ability to just listen to somebody who is trying these things and saying, here we need to improve, and here we need to and here we need to do more, and this is very good, and so on. And those kind of elements is important. The human touch, basically, to all the information that is available.
Yeah. Everything. And if you want to check out docs, if you wanted to have it too, because talking on that, Kurt did a blog on how you can actually get it into your Outlook RSS feed, so you could go check that out. Just get into that. Really nice, Kurt. And I'm hoping that we will get that for the ideas.com ideas site as well. That would be awesome. So you can just get a feed of what's new in your RSS
then you
feed.
will have 9,000 CRM ideas coming into your email box.
Yeah, I hope it would be nice to filter them, right? So right. But how do you feel that ideas.dynamics.com works for CRM? Have you been in there and added some stuff, ideas of your own?
Yeah, so I even did a blog post on something that I wanted to change, and I got a comment, and remember to link to your ideas. And I found out I had an idea about this like 2 years ago, and now I'm blogging about it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of good ideas there, and we have one MVP in Sweden, Jonas Rapp. He is quite often on Twitter complaining about ideas not being implemented. So I think if you ever need someone to push ideas for you, just give him an incentive.
Yeah, because it's kind of funny on the idea side, because people is kind of going into the ideas, and then they start running to all the colleagues and friends and customers and saying, vote on this idea, and hope that it kind of then stacks up and gets more votes. But we actually don't know if that helps prioritizing it on the backlog that Microsoft have.
Oh, I can tell you that it does. And specifically, I'm just going to go in, and one of my ideas, and where actually Konrad Folkman went in and he wrote, we are tracking this idea if it gets more traction. And I would suggest that would be a clear indication that he wants more votes for it.
I guess that's Konrad. It's typical Konrad comment.
Yeah. need
well,
more.
If you sort ideas on date and see how many votes the oldest ones have, then it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah.
Like there are some ideas out there, several thousand votes, and just nothing happening.
Yeah, but it is perfect when you talk to customer and I have this idea, and of course you never say no to a customer. You always say, that's a very good idea. I'll report that to Microsoft. And now we have the tool for doing that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you going to do, Fredrik, now when you go from being a partner and going to work at Microsoft? Because when you worked as a partner, you were sitting selling stuff to the customer, and you had all these ideas you could bring with you back to your employee, and you get some developer schmuck like me to implement it. But can you do that with Microsoft? Or
I just told it has been my most important thing to kind of try and implement standard, right? And I'm fairly good at coming around getting business processes to kind of fit with standard, or talking the customers into changing it. We've had, well, I'm not going to mention any customers, but the ones that I'm talking about probably knows the project we are implementing. But so there was a subsidiary of we are, for the mother company, or the head of the enterprise, we are working with them, and one of the subsidiaries had another partner which are implemented, and we looked at the changes that they made, or the ideas that they had for the change requests, and looking at them, I was like, well, have you really kind of tried to convince them to change that? And coming, of course, from the head company, we could be more strict and say, no, you're not going to get that. You have to do some process changes, or this is ridiculous. You don't have to get that idea in. You could just use some other fields or things like that. But I also understand where the customer coming from. Like you say, Kurt, no customer has a wrong idea. But if you're only working on that level and you don't have that guile, I guess, to kind of change and challenge the customer, say, well, what you're doing and what you're suggesting is probably not the best way to go. We could add that. It's a couple of hours for us and we'll make more money, but maybe you could just use this other field and that will make the solution work just as well. So I'm thinking it's both that you're working with customers, but you still want to make them use standard. So getting back to what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sell, and that's what I love. And answering people like, "Okay, did your system do this?" And I'm possibly sure that I'm the one who'll answer, "Yes, of course, it'll work in standard, no problem," because that's kind of my mentality. And underlying that is probably, but you have to change some business processes. Yeah.
And Fredrik, one of the big changes you will experience is, of course, when you start working at Microsoft, you know which ERP system they're running.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that, because that was a big. Thanks for the segue, Kurt. So, is it December or something where Microsoft went out and had this big announcement with the SAP? that they're going to run that on the back end. What you're saying is probably sort of right, because they are working with Dynamics products further down the chain. So what they're actually doing with SAP HANA is that is going to run their core financial services. And that is not the scale which Dynamics 365 is meant to work. It is not at that level, right? It is Fortune 500, top 10 companies. That's where kind of they are so transaction based, and because they have already SAP, right? They have their own developer team, they have their own company running their development, and it's kind of not standard. So I think that upgrading to that, and again, it's in the mantra, and he wrote about that in a book with Satya, saying that you have to partner with people who are even in the same field as you are. So even though they're competitors, they're still customers and vendors to each other. So it's a new Microsoft, and that's how they're going to do it. I think maybe some old heads of Microsoft would do it differently and say, let's implement what we have here.
Yeah.
But would you...
But the most exciting is, of course, the hour registration form that you will have in front of you every day at Microsoft. Next time I meet you and you've been working there, I'm looking forward to hear how it looks like, and if you wish it was Dynamics.
I probably wish it would have been. So, but yeah, and but let's. I think SAP for these types of companies, the big companies, makes a lot of sense when it comes to all those special transactions and the things that they do there. Would you think that's would you implement Dynamics 365 for finance and operations in Microsoft? Do you think that would be plausible to do?
Yeah, just creating 5,000 instances or something like that, and hopefully have
right. Yeah. Well, HANA is better at that. Let's just to say that. But what they got in return was from that deal was SAP on Azure, which is gonna greatly increase the revenue on that. And this is kind of what they did with Salesforce back in the day, and that didn't go so well. What's the head of Salesforce kind of went out and said that they're not happy about that, and then just after the Dynamics 365 was launched, we got the LinkedIn acquisition, and it's like, I think they weren't all happy about that. But I don't think that's going to happen with the SAP scenario. But win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you have something you want to add on that, Marius?
Well, no.
Okay.
we'll see what happens, right?
I better not talk about Salesforce because it's going to be a one-sided conversation.
I just saw that interesting smile on your face.
That's the cool thing about video.
No comment.
Okay.
Not a single comment.
Yeah. So what's your outlook for 2018, Tommy? What's going to happen?
2018, it's going to be a good year. And I'm basing that on that I've spent almost the entire 2017 digging in on operations. Prior to that, I had to sort of work a lot with the previous version of operations, or AX 2012. But I remember I spoke to Kurt several months ago, asked him, do you do anything on AX 2012? And he said, no. And I was so jealous because I was like, oh crap, I got so many projects I'm working with AX 2012 and but
you have to know something, Tommy. And I don't do what people ask me to do. I do what I want to do. So each time I meet a customer and the customer, hey, will you come to work with us? We have something here we need to do. Okay, the first thing I ask, is it fun? And is it interesting? If you comply to that of course I can work with that customer. So Yeah. So I don't. If a customer say come here and I have some very very boring work, I just say no. Let some other do it.
I tend to get some of the jobs that others. Yeah, this is just give it to Tommy. He can sort it out.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of challenging stuff that is he's going to look into more into retail and those parts of the solution, and obviously also integrating with the customer engagement and integrating with all sorts of various systems, even non-Microsoft type of systems. So yeah, but it's going to be fun, and I look forward to it because I see the maturity of the product itself, even though there are some, well, not some, there are several parts that are still needs to mature further on the operation sides. And while we could talk about that Dynamics 365 is sort of like envisioned as the same product platform, what do you call it, sort of same portfolio of different loosely coupled products. Underneath the hood, there's still different platforms there. They have different implementations. There's differences in the technology. There are similarities, but there's differences in the technologies, and you see it even in the licensing schema as well. So, but it's like a stepping stone, and so we're going to see business processes being stepped closer and closer and loosely coupled, and then we're going to see step by step the platform is getting closer and closer. So it's going to be interesting to watch how this evolves.
Yeah, we also have a CRM department in our offices, and we were going through the licensing of the Dynamics 365. And you know that if you buy what you call the Plan 2, which includes everything, then it's around $210 or something like that for an enterprise user. But if you remove the CRM part, it is $190. So we kind of tell our colleagues that you're worth $20.
Oh, sorry, Marius.
Oh, we're much too focused on earning money than how much we're worth.
Yeah. Well, that's the cut to the CRM department when you divide the spoils, right?
There's also this divide in terminology, that there's a gap there that also needs to be bridged. I remember talking to a customer engagement consultant who was talking about configuration, but what he actually was alluding to was what I would call customizations, but he referred to it as configuration, and configuration typically in the ERP world is setting parameters, not changing the system. So there's and you also have this, as far as I know, you have entities, things that you can use to interact or either push data in or pull data out of your system, and data entities in operations, and I believe it's virtual entities in customer engagement. So there's terminology and words and gaps there as well that we need to close.
Yeah. I think they will get closer in 2018. I see the platform maturing now a lot, and there's a lot of things in. I really like what they're doing with ideas and how that is implemented, and also how they've added now the roadmap. Yeah, so it kind of goes from the ideas and also all the other feedback channels that they have. I've seen program managers add actually ideas into ideas to then kind of escalate it into roadmaps. So you see some ideas being added by Microsoft people, and I guess that is based on feedback that they get from different channels, and that then gets piped into their roadmap. And the roadmap has what they say is a 6 month horizon. So everything that's in that will be developed within 6 months, and it's really interesting that we now see that they're on a 2 times a year cycle where they have a spring and an autumn release, which basically is a winter and summer release. But there was lag like 3 months after. And it's going to be interesting to see how that is going to evolve. We just have to go in there and have a look at it and get ideas in there and watch it mature. The platform, the application, and kind of the whole ecosystem now.
Yeah.
So what's your predictions?
You just have a question for Marius.
Yeah.
How deep are you into the VSTS part? Is that an active tool you're using?
Sorry, which?
VSTS, Visual Studio Team Services.
Oh, yeah. So how deep I am into it?
Yeah, how deep you're actually using that in implementations?
So I haven't used VSTS for implementation since 2016, I believe. So recently just used GitHub and the Bitbucket, and everyone uses Jira. So, but I've had experience with it, and I've made some automation tools for it for CI/CD integration. But I'm not sure what you're.
Because
are you trying to make me say something stupid? Or?
No. The reason why I'm asking is because the implementations we are running today, we have the VSTS as the core implementation tool. We use it for functional consultants, we use it for developers, we use it for project management, and we use it for testing. So the entire implementation project is organized around the VSTS.
Right.
So and of course, when we are lifting in the sales process into that, I would just like to have your ideas if this is a tool that is commonly used in that domain.
I believe so, but like CI/CD hasn't really been easy to do in Dynamics, at least in the CRM world. But there are some articles out there which explain how easy it actually is to get it up and running. Like Sean MacArthur, one of the guys behind the ADX studios, employed by Microsoft now. He did some YouTube videos on how to implement that, and it's almost too easy, complete with branching strategies and how to maintain different versions when you're in ISV and so on. So yeah, for sales or field service or whatever you want, it isn't much of an effort to fully integrate it with VSTS, but you kind of have to look for the information. It isn't presented to you as part of the installation or configuration.
Okay.
But what kind of tooling do you use in customer engagements for sort of handling the life cycle of the implementation, or the customizations and that story?
Yeah, so we have a tool called the package deployer, which lets you download the zip file of the customizations, and it explodes it into XML files, which you can check into source control. And thanks to Visual Studio 2018, 2017, it does XML diff. So when you download a new version of your solution, it only checks in the changes. So you could go in and do a compare on different check-ins and see what has changed.
Okay. So this is where you would use Git to sort of as a versioning system, or GFS with Git. Or
yeah,
so
so you could probably use whatever you want.
Right.
But
there's no recommended tool on the CRM or the customer engagement side. There's no default, because on operations we have this lifecycle services that we use, the portal where everything is kind of managed. There's no equivalent to that on the CRM side, I reckon.
No. So there's guides and the recommendations on Microsoft websites. But they're basically saying that, like, you should plan for this, and you should at least cover these bases and so on. But it isn't, and I hope I'm not wrong here, but I don't think there's a framework for ALM.
No. And maybe they'll develop something right there.
Yeah, it sounds to me like that with the operations or the X world, there's a little bit stronger emphasis on customizations, probably for historical reasons, and also that typically it's there. You almost immediately think about bringing over your older, perhaps legacy customizations, whatever you had in your previous versions of the ERP. You want to somehow get those customizations over between the versions. Now, obviously, you want to go with standard, but there is perhaps a stronger emphasis on customization and that lifecycle management. And whatever we've been told to use Visual Studio online and using TFS, we can't even use the Git flavor of TFS and VSTS, sorry. And we are sort of forced to use that by the tooling and basically by the using a best practice. So, but we're doing development and customizations for operations, and while doing that, we used VSTS.
Right. And the other thing we also do on our side is that everything is pushed over to the customer side. So typically for us, it is the VSTS of the customer that we're working on. So all of us is utilizing that. So we are kind of just providers of knowledge into the implementation that they have. So, but the VSTS and the work orders, the epics, the features, and so on are central tools in the implementation that we have right now. That's what is the drumbeat that we have in the when we are performing the implementation.
It's going to be exciting to look at also what supportive tools they're going to do. Maybe they'll take some experiences from operations and put it into CRM and customer engagement, and we'll see it pull back.
No, it's just going to be machine learning and automation.
Yeah.
So,
everything's going to be.
It's not going to be any coding in the future.
You're going to ask some AI to do it for you.
Yeah.
But it's like I said earlier. I mean, customer engagement, or formerly known as CRM, is way more mature than operations here, because we are still currently today checking in fixes on the Microsoft standard code, and I don't believe you have to do that with customer engagements. Whatever software that's delivered by Microsoft, you can't override it. You can't change it. You can extend on it and build beside it, but you can't remove it or change it, as far as I understand.
Well, you can with plugins. So you can register plugins that run synchronously pre-operation and pre-validation. So, for example, if you have cascade rules, you delete an account, then it should delete all underlying contacts and all underlying emails and opportunities and so on. Then you could register a plugin which runs pre-validation. So before it validates all the data and connections and relationships, and just, for example, throw an error so you can't delete an account at all. Or you could just do a roll-up query and see, are there any underlying contacts? Okay, then just abort this action, because you're not supposed to delete an account if there are any active contacts on it. Well, so you could interrupt, the system functionality that way.
But you can't go in and change the actual compiled assembly delivered by Microsoft.
No.
Can you see the source code?
You see the source code? Yeah,
the Microsoft source code.
So no, I'm going to do a joke about Telerik, but no.
Okay, well, we can step through the Microsoft code. We have access to it when doing development, and it's probably going to be like that for a while. But they are constantly moving towards what they call soft sealing and hard sealing their own code, and in a few years we're going to get where you are with customer engagement, and whatever we can do, it will be sort of like a plugin or an extension, something that happens prior or post to whatever standard is doing.
Yeah, let's hope we can still step through code, though. It's it's nice to see what they think and how they do it, to be able to extend it even easier. like let's not lose the access. Let's hope for that. And I can say that now until next Thursday. Next Thursday, I can't be that objective. So,
but you know, as a developer, all other developers have stupid ideas. It's kind of annoying stepping through other people's codes because other people are stupid. You know.
It's just when you're going to the dentist and he looks in your mouth and says, "Who was your previous dentist?"
Yeah,
exactly.
But have you ever stepped through your own code thinking, "Who wrote this?" And then it's like, "Oh, that was me 4 years ago." Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's my main reason for using a source control system, is just to not put blame on myself.
Yeah, I don't develop that much anymore, but I did do it a lot priorly. And one of my things I did was to create comment jokes in the source code, because then I knew that people started to look for the jokes in the source code, and then we actually got a code review. So they kind of tried to find where have Kurt put in the jokes right now.
Yeah, they're focused on the jokes and not the bad code.
Yeah. Of course, then I get away with it. So.
Very nice. So you're still. I'm so happy that you mentioned that we're gonna. There was another business solution MVP, because we need like 4, and I'm gonna lose mine. When did and who is this person who got the final MVP award in Norway?
Yeah, so it's Ahmad, and he got it the same month as me in November 2017.
I didn't know about that.
Ahmad Najir, I think.
Yeah.
So he's a business solutions MVP, and it's based on his efforts with Power Apps and Flow.
Awesome.
That's nice. We need to talk with him.
We should have him on and do you can change this picture right here of me out with him, and then you can do a podcast. So you have the Norwegian MVP Business Solution podcast. Well, yeah. We'll invite him. We have to get him on, and because it's so. This is the kind of final piece to the puzzle where you will kind of rule them all. This is going to be the game changer for Dynamics, and where we kind of get the lower enthusiasts people, everybody will get away from these access apps and these SharePoint sites, business applications, and the spreadsheets that are roaming every company. And now we're going to get Power Apps all over. Tommy is afraid about the lifecycle management, but hopefully that's what we're going to get.
Nah, I'm not too worried about that. It's just a servicing bit of operations that I alluded to that is cumbersome, right, as it is right now. And I think we're going to do a dedicated podcast on that and potentially get some of the PGs out on that. That would be great.
For Power Apps?
No, servicing operation.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Tommy will arrange something, and I'll just show up, and it'll look like this.
Yeah, and by then you're going to pluck down your MVP posters behind you, or you're going to keep them up.
Hey, I still got the awards. It's an award. It's not like when you lose them, you kind of have to take them down.
You can't
right?
prove it.
Yeah. But what question? Let's say that you work at Microsoft for a few years now, Fredrik, and then suddenly you say, okay, now I want to go back into a customer or a partner. And do you need to reapply to be MVP, or are you just on a pause?
No, I will probably have to make the contribution efforts that I've done over the years and get back into the game. I would.
Okay, so you will go back to the start.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
But I'm not leaving Microsoft. Hey, I made it. I'm working for the greatest company in the world. Yeah. Why would I ever stop? So the pay's good, and it's the greatest thing in the world, right? To go around just talking to people. And I was told that I'm not gonna be putting in timesheets. No timesheets. That was so. Hopefully, I won't see any SAP. I'll just run around and supporting you guys themselves.
One thing I want to thank you, Fredrik. You have done a tremendous work for the community that we have, and I want to thank you for having the podcast and also being available. and I think the everybody listening to enjoys that we have such a profile as you. It is kind of sad to lose you as an MVP.
Well, I'm not gonna be. I'm still gonna be in the product, and I'm gonna be doing. I've got like 2 sessions still. I'm gonna be active in the AXUG thing because
what
I
are
think
timesheets?
What? Sorry. What?
I think we lost him.
Yeah, I think we lost him.
Well, anyways, but I'm still going to be a part of the community. I'm still going to be, though a little bit less. I'm going to try and because I think it's so important, and I think the community even sells the product more. So if I want to sell some more, it's like doing the groundwork, and it's gonna sell itself.
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Well, thank you guys. It's been awesome. Thank you to Marius, who is now just a blank Skype
we lost him.
person. Kurt got shifted over here, so I'll just pull you in, Kurt. Oh, there we go. Now we really lost him. Everything's going to pieces. Well, thank you guys. Go subscribe to our podcast if you don't know where to find that. You go to Dynamics Podcast. That's dynpodcast.com to find my stuff. And go and check out Kurt's blog, because that is probably also one of the most functional and greatest blogs out there. So that is kurthatlevik.wordpress.com. He should get his own domain soon, but you know. It costs money.
$2 each month, so no way I'm gonna invest.
He's an efficient guy. And go check out Tommy's. It's yet another AX still. Yet another AX.com. And we'll be back shortly. So click that subscribe button, and also click the bell icon, because we do stream these podcasts that we do, and if you want to be a part of our recording session, you have to subscribe, because then you get notified when we do it. We seldom announce that we're going to do podcasts, so go check it out. And thank you so much for joining us, and bye for now.